Hello guys, welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to discuss how to do a bit of 3D modeling using QGIS to transform something that looks like this into something that looks like this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the tutorial. Alright, so for this tutorial, I'm going to be using 3 files. I'll be using one raster, which is basically a DEM like this, and I'll be using one watershed boundary, and also I'll be using a river network. So these are the 3 things that we will be actually using for this tutorial. Now for the time being, I'll deactivate this river network, and first of all, let's go ahead and actually clip this DEM into the boundaries of my watershed. So to do that, actually we can go to the processing toolbox. Now in case if you don't have the processing toolbox, what you can do is you can go to this processing tab, and over here you will see the toolbox option. So just enable it, and over here in the search panel, just search, and as you can see there are multiple options that you can choose from for clipping. Some comes from Saga GIS and some from GDAL and some from QGIS itself. I'm just going to go with this clip raster with polygon from Saga, and over here my input will be the DEM and the polygon will be the boundary of the watershed. Alright, now I can run. After that you can go ahead and close this, and after a while you will see that we have the clipped DEM like this. And next what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to play around with the colors a bit. So after you open the properties, you can actually go to single band pseudo color over here, and over here from this color ramp I'm actually going to create a custom color ramp. Let's say we can go to create new color ramp, and I'm going to choose gradient over here, click OK. I'm actually going to use maybe about 3 colors. Let's say for the lower elevations I can use something that might be of a shade of a blue, something like this. And I want to add a stop somewhere over here. To add a stop, you can just go ahead and double click somewhere in here and it'll add a stop, a gradient stop. So once you have a new gradient stop, just click on that and go and try and select a color that's quite close to, let's say, something a bit of a brownish color, something like this. This probably would correspond to flat lands, flat areas, just to give the indication of those lands correspond to lower elevations. Alright, and then maybe somewhere over here I'm going to add another gradient stop by double clicking, and over here I'm just going to actually select a bit of a light green. Maybe from here I can choose a bit of a light green over here, and at the final stop I can actually pick a bit of a dark green. Now this dark green will be reflected on areas such as the mountain tops. So that's basically the idea that I'm having right now. So let's click OK. Alright, and the mode I'm going to change it to quantile, and I'm going to increase the number of classes maybe to about 15 classes, let's say. Or I think about 10 should be fine, I guess. And then click on apply. Yeah, I guess the color distribution sort of more or less reflect the elevation ranges in the way that I would like to have it. But if you would like to actually tweak the colors more, you can always play around more and tweak the settings according to your preference. But for me, I think this is good enough. Alright, now let's go to the 3D modeling part. Now for this tutorial, I'm going to actually rely on an external plugin called QGIS to 3JS in order to develop my 3D model. Now I don't have that plugin installed already, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to plugins and go to manage and install plugins first, and over here we can search for that plugin, QGIS to 3JS. You can see that already here, and once you locate that, you can simply install that from here. Just click on install plugin and just make sure that you are connected to internet so that it can download the corresponding data and install the plugin for you guys. Alright, once you're done with that, you can just go to web, and you can see that there's a new option called QGIS to 3JS. Now before going to this QGIS to 3JS exporter, I'm just going to actually go ahead to my coordinate reference system over here. And right now I'm using WGS 1984 Geographic Coordinate Reference System. And the unit of WGS 1984 Geographic Coordinate Reference System is actually decimal degree. However, I would like to have my data frame in a projected coordinate system so that I can work with units like meters. So since I'm working with an area which corresponds to Malaysia, I'm actually going to select the corresponding UTM zone. In this case, it's going to be UTM zone 47N, but in your respective case, you can actually find out to which UTM zone your corresponding area belongs, and then you can actually change to that particular UTM zone. And once I select that, I can simply go ahead and click on apply and then OK. And then I'm going to go to web, select the newly installed plugin QGIS to 3JS and open QGIS to 3JS exporter. Alright, now once you open this exporter window, you will see you will not actually see anything until you click on this DEM. And as you can see, now the DEM appears, but not necessarily in a 3D way. But to build a proper 3D model from here, we are going to actually have to do a couple of things. Now the first thing is I'm going to remove these external parts. We don't need those necessarily. So what I can do is I can go to this DEM option, right click over here and go to properties. And from here, there are actually a couple of options that you can play around with. Now, if you would like to increase the resampling level, what you can do is, let's say you can put it up to about 5 and see how it looks after you click on apply. But for my case, I would actually like to maybe retain the resampling level to about 3. And the most important thing when it comes to removing these external parts is that you can select this clip DEM with polygon layer. Just make sure that you have imported a corresponding polygon layer by which you would actually like to demarcate your boundary. Now in my case, I have already imported this watershed boundary shapefile, and that's going to be my polygon layer, which is going to act as the boundary by which the DM is going to get clipped for this particular 3D model. And the other options that you can play around with is actually the resolution. Let's say you can decrease or increase the resolution, but in my case, I'm just going to retain the highest resolution that we have. Yeah, I think that's about it. So I can just go ahead and click on apply. And once you do that, this might actually take a while, a few seconds at least, for the program to build the 3D model. And you can click OK. Alright, now you see actually we start having signs of having a proper 3D model, isn't it? Now to zoom in or zoom out, you can use your mouse wheel. If you scroll up, you will see that you will zoom in, and if you scroll down, you will see that you will zoom out. And to move this in space, you can use the right mouse button. You can press on the right mouse button, but don't let it go. And you can now move your mouse around, and you will see that you can actually move the whole model to a location of your preference. And if you would like to rotate this along a particular axis, what you can do is you can just move the mouse button and pick a point around which you would like to sort of pivot this whole model. Let's say if I go somewhere in the middle, and if I click once, left click once, you will see that a yellow color button appears. And now what you can do is you can just come somewhere over here, and then if you move your mouse around while you hold your left click, you can see that you are sort of pivoting the whole 3D model around that particular point that you specified. So that's how you actually sort of pivot the model, the whole model. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to increase the vertical exaggeration. So that'll sort of artificially build up the model based on the Z value of each of these pixels of this DEM. Now to do that, you can go to scene and you can go to scene settings. And over here, you can vertically exaggerate the Z values. Let's say if I put maybe a value of about, let's say 2.5 or something. And if you press apply, it might take a while to rebuild the DEM. Yeah, you can see that now actually the mountains and the lowlands are quite easily distinguishable, isn't it? Now, one more thing you can do is you can actually add the river network to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first activate this river network shapefile, which is made out of polylines, and you can see that the lines already appear over here, but I'm going to change the color. Let's say if I go to properties, and now just keep in mind that you can actually access the layers individually even though you have already opened this QGIS to 3JS exporter. So you don't have to necessarily close this and then come back and then open the exporter again. You can actually simultaneously work on your layers while you keep this one open. So I'm just going to select this simple line and change the line color to, well, since it's a river, I think it's better to go with something that's reflective of a shade of a blue, something like this. Yeah, and then I can click apply and click OK. Now you can see that actually the river starts running from the mountain tops and then flows down all the way to the lowlands. In case if you would like to do a couple of advanced visualizations corresponding to this line shapefile, what you can do is you can first activate this line over here and then go to properties. And from here actually there are a couple of things that you can just try out. For example, you can change the object type from line to be something else. Let's say something like, if I set the object type to be wall, and over here the z coordinate I'm going to say relative to the DEM layer, and over here I'm going to maybe increase the altitude to be about I'm not sure, let's say about 50, and see what happens. And over here you can see that it's saying it's building the river network. Yeah, it's not so obvious. I'm not sure if you can notice or not. Maybe if I put something about 250, I think it might be a bit obvious. Yeah, you can see that when I select the object type to be wall, it's sort of the river network, which used to be a line, sort of builds up as a wall. Now I can't think of a case where this might be handy, but in case if you might need this kind of an effect for certain type of visualization, it's better to know that you can actually do something like this using this 3D model builder. So to me actually it looks quite nice. I mean, it's a pretty cool trick that you can do to make your model a bit more visually pleasing wherever it becomes relevant. So I'm just going to actually keep this with an elevation value of about 100. Now, as you can see, there are a few other things that you can actually try out and see how you can alter this 3D model to fit the model to your specific purposes. But I guess you got the basic idea of how to use this tool, how to use this external plugin of QGIS to develop a 3D model to, sort of do a quick visualization of a digital elevation model that you might have. Now, before I wrap up this tutorial, I would also like to explain to you a way that we can use this 3D model and export it to an external file so that we can actually pass it on to someone else who might not necessarily have QGIS but still can weave this 3D model just the way that we are weaving it, like this. So the way that you can do that would be, so we can go to File and go to Export to Web, and from here you can actually export this into an HTML file so that anybody who has a web browser actually can weave this without necessarily having to have QGIS. So the output directory, let's select, I have created a folder called Creating a 3D Model using QGIS. So I'm going to select that folder, and I can rename this to be something like 3D model of the watershed.html. I'm going to untick open the Weaver in a web browser. And also, before you export the file, just make sure to tick this enable the Weaver to run locally under these general settings, and you can click on export. You can see that I actually do have my other shape files and stuff over here, but among those you will see that there will be a couple of new files which gets generated, and along with that we have the HTML, the corresponding HTML file which we also generated, 3D model of the watershed. Now I can click on that. We get a complete view of the 3D model just as how it was within QGIS, but now we are not actually running QGIS at all. We are opening this just using the Firefox web browser. So pretty cool, isn't it? Now you can just as easily pass all these files to maybe someone else who might not necessarily have QGIS, and still that person would be able to open this using their own local web browser, which can turn out to be actually quite useful in certain cases. Alright, I guess that's about it for this tutorial. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. And don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials like this, and I'll see you with the next tutorial soon.